You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome. You're listening to My Dog Digs Dirt. I'm your host, Lauren Collier. Well, he's rescued and trained and found homes for dozens of shelter dogs, trained hundreds of animals for commercials, films, and television. He is an Emmy Award-winning TV host who has just released his first book, Lucky Dog Lessons. On today's show, meet the host of the CBS TV show Lucky Dog, Brandon McMillan, and find out how you can train your dog in just 7 days. Yes, I gotta stay tuned too. I hope you will as well. I don't know about you, but I really need the help. My Dog Digs Dirt is back right after this.
It's DesignerPetSweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit DesignerPetSweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. DesignerPetSweaters.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
My Dog Digs Dirt is back with Emmy Award-winning TV host, animal lover and rescuer, and trainer Brandon McMillan, star of one of my favorite shows, Lucky Dog. Thrilled to have you here, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
I have to tell you, I was kind of surfing the channels one weekend, and on comes this show I had never seen before, and it's your show, Lucky Dog, and I've just been hooked ever since. It's really wonderful. It's just so positive and upbeat. For those listeners who might not have had the privilege to watch it, let's talk about that first. Tell everybody what you do and what you accomplish.
Well, Lucky Dog is basically it's a story of second chances. Every week on the show, I rescue one dog from a kill shelter. I bring it back to my ranch, known as the Lucky Dog Ranch, where I proceed to assess it for what it knows and, more importantly, what they don't know. And then I rehabilitate them and find them the appropriate home. A lot of times it's just a family pet, and quite often I train them to become service dogs or even therapy dogs for people in need. So I've always said dogs are an important part of our society, and I don't look at a dog as a pet. I look at it as an asset to the family, or potentially an asset to save someone's life.
Well, it's so wonderful because it's such a win-win situation. There you are, you go to the shelter, and then you help the dog by training, and then you go and find this wonderful family as a match. Is that hard to do? Because you are selective, which I think you say you really have to be.
Well, it's yes and no. I mean, for years I did this before the show, and I had an email list of probably between 5,000 and 10,000 people. And
wow.
between that social network and then when social media got popular, it even got easier because now things are shared so quickly. And so once I put one email out or a post, it spreads like wildfire at this point. And I really have no problem finding people nowadays. The only times I have an issue finding someone is when it comes to a service dog where I know this dog is specifically going to be good for one type of person. And sometimes it's hard to get a disabled person to step up to the plate to be actually on camera. Now, off camera, I could find them in a heartbeat. But to be on the show and what I promote, sometimes that's the hardest part is I tell people, listen, you got to let your guard down because, I want to show the power of what a service dog can do for you.
Yeah,
and that tends to be that's the most difficult part is getting someone to not only show their disability on camera, but let your guard down. I always tell people, I say, listen, this show is to promote shelter dogs and it's to promote what dogs can do for us. And the most effective way to make sure it comes off on television, you got to let your guard down 100%.
Now, when you go to the shelter, is it hard to choose because there's so many to choose from? Do you have something in your mind that you're thinking this might work with this family, or how does that work?
Oh, absolutely. It can be a little hard to choose, but often what I do is the shelters know exactly kind of the criteria that I'm looking for often because I'm looking for families. And so they say, listen, we got a great dog down here. It's exactly what you're looking for, I think. And so it does make the process easier. The reality is I can go through a shelter, and if you have 100 dogs, I can figure out usually within 5 to 10 minutes which ones are going to be perfect for, the families that I know that I'm looking for.
Right.
I can spot a lot right through the bars, and then once I meet them inside the kennel, it gets even easier. So the reason I can do it so well now is because I've got so many miles under my belt at this point doing this stuff.
You go around to different shelters, correct?
Oh, I go around to different shelters. Actually, off the show, I go around to different shelters around the country. But just in L.A. here, I mainly hit the L.A. shelters.
Right. And of course, this is in your blood because you come from a family of animal lovers and trainers and rescuers. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. My whole family, they were wild animal trainers in the entertainment industry.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was my background. I trained animals for the movies for about 15 years. And about 5-6 years ago, I completely jumped ship in the middle of my career. And, that's career suicide for most people. And honestly, right. I didn't care because I wanted to get more fulfillment out of my career. I decided that training animals for movies, it was fun, but it wasn't giving me fulfillment inside. I don't know everything, but what I do know is you're not here for long on this earth, so you better wake up in the morning and do something you absolutely love.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what I switched my career to training service dogs and therapy dogs because I absolutely love doing it. And, ironically, for the first 3-4 years of doing it, I was flat broke. I got evicted out of 2 apartments that I was living out of my car for. Yeah, but I loved doing it. It was the only thing I knew how to do. And I knew that, it would just be a matter of time before the concept really, it settled in with people.
So did they come to you with the idea for Lucky Dog, or how did that start?
Actually, what happened there was around, early 2013, CBS, they got rid of their Saturday morning cartoons. Now, if you're a kid of the 80s like I am, you remember that's all you grew up on. And so when they told me they were getting rid of their Saturday morning cartoons, I was like, man, what are you going to replace it with? They're like, all-age programming. We want shows that everybody can watch. And so I said, well, how can I help you? They said, well, we know what you do. We see your concept and how you change these shelter dogs into these amazing animals helping people.
Wow.
And they said, we want to document this. Exactly. And so it's funny because whenever they came to me and they said, we want to film what you do, and I'm like, this isn't show worthy. What do I do? I just take dogs from the shelter and train them to become service dogs and help people in need. I didn't make the connection until they actually filmed me doing it for a few weeks.
Oh, wow.
And they showed me an edit of a cut of what we're going to show on TV. And I was blown away. I actually cried when I watched the first
Oh, that's so
edit.
great.
Yeah, it wasn't even an episode yet. It was just basically a concept, edit, what we're going to show on TV.
Yeah.
I cried. I'm like, it's funny. I've been doing this for years, and I didn't even know it was so impactful or heartwarming. I just looked at it as, I'm going to rescue a dog, and I'm going to train it, and I'm going to give it to somebody who needs it. That's it.
That must be so
so they kind of
opened
my eyes.
You never know, right? I love the fact that you're always so positive, like the way your training techniques, and we're going to talk about your new book, but it's just, even with the people, because you sort of do the animal, of course, but you also have your hand in the families that are going to adopt. You make sure they realize they're part of it too.
Well, exactly, because look, you can have the best trained dog in the world, but if you put it in hands of people that aren't educated on how to handle a trained dog, it could be the worst dog in the world. So you have to train. Dog training is only half the battle. Human training is the other half.
Absolutely, yeah. That's so that brings us to your book, because I could use you to come over and train my Bouvier. I need a lot of help there. It's Lucky Dog Lessons. It's a wonderful book. And Brandon, it's something that anyone can read and really gain a lot from. Was it difficult to write your lessons down into a book form?
Believe it or not, the most difficult part about it wasn't writing it down. It was trying to make the book different than any other book on the market.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean when I say that. For the past, 10, 15 years, there's been hundreds of dog training books in the market.
Yes.
And what I wanted to do was, first of all, the secret in writing a successful book is finding out what has been out there hundreds of times, for the past, 10, 15 years. So I scanned all the books out there. I'm reading all the techniques, and I'm like, well, these are just, I've seen these a million times. So what I purposely did was I made sure my techniques were polar opposites of theirs, but I also had to write it simple enough that anyone could do it. I didn't want to do my advanced techniques that you had to be an advanced dog trainer to execute them. I wanted to make sure the techniques were so simple that a 5-year-old could do this. And so that was the hardest part, was digging deep into the arsenal of every command I give a dog. I've got 20 ways to teach a dog a down. And so I wanted to make sure that my down was different than any other book out there, and also it was simple enough that anyone could do it.
Because you stress the 7 common commands. Let's tell everybody what those are, because I know my dog doesn't know not one of them.
7 common commands are sit, stay, down, come, off, heel, and no. And I call them the 7 common commands because if you really think about it, these are the most common commands that we ask our dogs to do on a daily basis. I don't promote tricks in this book, and the reason why I don't is because tricks they're not going to make your dog be a more better behaved dog. I like stressing obedience, because obedience is what not only going to make him a well-trained dog, but an obedient dog, a well-mannered dog. Tricks are for kids. They're fun, but my book is based on the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, the pure education of what a dog should have as a core foundation in their system.
And we're talking about every dog. We're not just talking about, big, I laugh because my dog's about 132 pounds and should be, learn these, but also someone with a smaller dog. I mean, a dog doesn't just know these, they have to learn them. Would you agree with that, Brandon?
Absolutely. This book was written for any size dog, any breed, any type of personality. And the beauty is every chapter that covers whatever I cover, there's variations of the technique. So if I'm teaching your dog a stay, here's one way we can do it. If that way didn't work, here's a variation. And if that way doesn't work, it's another variation. So I make sure I cover all the basics of the specific kind of personalities or the problems or troubles you might run into. Okay, well, that didn't work with my dog. Well, guess what? I got a couple more variations.
Exactly. I mean, it's really a wonderful book. We're going to continue our discussion. We're going to take a short break, but we will be back with Brandon McMillan, wonderful dog trainer, great TV host, new dog, Lucky Dog Lessons, when we return.
Everything we tried failed except the Dynovite.
The standard run-of-the-mill tests and treatments.
Cortisone.
Antihistamine.
Multiple creams, antibiotics, spray. Multiple prescriptions.
Steroid injections.
Spray, sharp antibiotics.
Steroid creams.
No results.
It was neglect. The other owners didn't care enough about him to take care of him and to give him the nutrition he needed.
A nutritional supplement like Dynovite.
To be the healthy, happy dog he is today.
DINOVITE.com.
If you want the dog to be healthy, you got to feed it something healthy.
Put some nutrition in your dog. The vet that I trust recommended Dynovite. The dog I have today, because of Dynovite, has a sparkle in his eye, a lush coat, healthy skin.
When you rescue a dog, you've got to feed him right for life.
Dynovite will make your dog a happy dog.
Dynovite is nutrition.
Dynovite for life.
859-428-1000.
859-428-1000.
DINOVITE.com.
Hi, I'm Dana Humphrey, the founder of Whitegate PR. We have been specializing in PR and marketing in the pet industry for over 10 years. If you have a pet product or service you would like to promote, give us a call. We can help create awareness for your brand on TV, radio, magazines, newspapers, and blogs. Feel free to reach me directly at 619-414-9307 or learn more on our website at whitegatepr.com or follow us on Facebook.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Hi, My Dog Digs Dirt is back. We are with Brandon McMillan, who has just written the most wonderful book called Lucky Dog Lessons. And before the break, we were talking about how this is easy for anyone to understand, Brandon. And you said you wrote it with that in mind, because you also talk about the fact that you think it's so important that people train their dog. You agree with that?
Exactly. That's exactly why. That was exactly my theory when I wrote this book. I needed the reader to really absorb the information quickly instead of wondering, what did they just read?
Absolutely.
Because what I didn't want to come off as when I wrote this book is I didn't want the reader to think, I'm some god to the dogs and I had this special power to speak dog. No, I'm just like everybody else out there, and I'm going to teach you the simplest techniques because just like you, I have problems with my dogs. And if this technique doesn't work, watch this. We're going to teach them this one.
That's great. It's really wonderful. What are some of the common problems that you see that you think, geez, if they just learned this would go away? You know, because there are like the barking or maybe a little food aggression or things like that.
One of the most common problems I think I see time and again is people rewarding bad behavior.
Okay.
And they reward bad behavior unknowingly. So I'll give you a good example. I see it all the time. I probably see it once every couple of days. You have somebody at a sidewalk cafe and their dog won't stop barking. And the way they keep the dog quiet is they give it a treat. And it's true, it does quiet the dog up for 30 seconds while they're chewing, but the dogs make the connection that when they bark, they get a reward. So technically, the person just taught them to bark because every time, and dog training is all about timing, as we know, and you give a dog a treat right after he barks, well, you basically taught it to bark. In fact, that's how we teach a dog, that's how we used to teach dogs to bark in the film industry. We would actually just wait for them to bark naturally and time it, and then we would put a command to it right as they're barking and give them a treat. And it's really the quickest way to teach a dog to bark on command. So a lot of people don't realize that they're rewarding bad behavior, and I see it left and right. And it honestly takes a dog trainer sometimes to point these things out to you as a dog owner, and all of a sudden you make the connection. You're like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah. It seems silly, but still, exactly. Another thing you stress, which I love, is that no dog is beyond saving.
Exactly. I mean, no dog is beyond saving. A lot of people think just because their dog is old and aggressive and set in their ways, dogs are just like humans. They have the ability to learn new information, even if it's at an older age. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I would highly disagree with that. You just can't teach them as fast.
Okay.
So every dog is worth saving. Now, it is true there are some dogs that are institutionalized to their old life, but I always say what you can't train, we adjust with. In other words, I've had a lot of aggressive dogs in the past that I've worked with, and, I've come to the point where I said, okay, you know what, this is basically instinctive to the dog to be aggressive. Now, I can't make him be a sweet dog to other dogs. However, I can adjust my handling ability, my training ability to where I actually catch him before he gets aggressive, and that's how we deal with something like aggression. So instead of trying to socialize this highly aggressive dog to make him sweet, which often is disastrous, I say, you know what, we're going to time it. And I cover that in the book in the aggression chapter. If you can time the dog and look at aggression like a meter, so there's like yellow, orange, and red, yellow being safe, red being obviously aggression zone. You can keep their aggressive tendencies in that yellow zone, then that's how we manage aggression. That's how we handle our dogs better, because I can't force the dog to be sweet, but I can time it correctly. Keeping him in that safe zone.
I see. Now, why do you think some owners have so much difficulty with their dogs and their training and such?
Well, there's a lot of variables. I really cover this in the book. In fact, one of the first chapters I really open up with is variables. I talk about the variables of dog breeds, the variables of personalities, their dog's history. No two dogs are alike. They're like a thumbprint. So let's just take your breed, for example. First thing you have to do is take your breed into consideration. What was it originally bred for? How has the world changed since those times? So a lot of breeds are 200-300 years old, and the breed, what it was used for, is outdated because now we have technology to fill in that job.
Right.
But the dog itself, the breed hasn't changed. It still is that instinctive personality to do that job. And so people always wonder, what am I doing wrong? Why is the dog doing this? You're doing nothing wrong. That's a herding dog. So when your kids come over and all start playing, your herding breed starts nipping them in the back of the ankles. You did nothing wrong.
Exactly.
And then we take history. What did the dog go through before you adopted him? The dog could have been abused, neglected. It could have had institutionalized to a life before you. And again, that all plays a vital role into your dog's personality, why it is the way it is, because we don't know exactly what happened to our rescue dogs. So we have to guess. So my Chihuahua, for example, she was highly abused before I got her. And it took her about 3 years to even come close enough to me where I could actually pick her up without her screaming.
Oh, goodness. Right.
Exactly. And that's institutionalized.
That's
institutionalized to her previous, life before me.
Right.
And again, there's nothing I did wrong, obviously.
Right.
So I had to be sensitive on my approach, how I trained her.
It's a wonderful book. You must be very proud of it. Also, you must be proud of your relationship to the Argus Service Dog Foundation. You talked about how important it is. You feel so good about helping with service dogs. Have you been involved for a long time?
Yeah. No, me and my partner, Mike Herstick, we started that foundation years ago. And basically, we started it for the same reasons that we continue it. We don't believe that disabled veterans should come back from war and have to struggle with their everyday lives. So we train them physical assist dogs to help them. We specialize in the ones that have taken some injury. Maybe they were hit by an IED and they're missing limbs, or they're in a wheelchair. And the reason why I can train these dogs so quickly is because a lot of the techniques I did in the film industry, they pretty much are service dog style techniques. So I would teach the dog on the Super Bowl commercial to run to the fridge, open the fridge up, grab the beer, and bring
that was a great commercial. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I had these techniques in my training arsenal. And so that's exactly why I jumped ship in my career, like I was saying earlier. I literally stopped that and I said, you know what, I'm going to train dogs to do this exact same stuff, but to help people.
That's so terrific. How can people get in touch with you, Brandon? How can they find the book? Maybe even be a part of the show if they want to adopt or, get involved with the Service Dog Foundation. How do they find you?
Well, my website, canineminded.com, has pretty as a one-stop shop for all this. It talks about the show. It talks about the, of course, there's a page for the book. There's a page for the foundation. And then on my social media handles, everything is at Brandon, either at Brandon McMillan or at Animal Brandon.
Fantastic. And the book again, Lucky Dog Lessons, I sort of mentioned before, but you must be very proud of it.
I am. And like I said, it's hopefully for years to come, it'll be considered, one of the most respected books of dog training because, like I said, books, they never go away. And so I'd like, 30, 40 years from now, people to look back at this book and say this book was ahead of its time.
Oh, yeah. Train your dog in 7 days. I mean, you read it and you can really do that.
Exactly. That's the goal. Like I said,
that's the goal.
Dog training is a little bit like martial arts for dogs. All you have to do is teach them the technique, and they can learn the techniques in a week. And then after that, all you have to do is condition them. Once they've learned the techniques, they're trained. Now you just practice a little bit every day.
But then you have to practice, right? Yeah, you have to practice, but not a long. Right? It's not a long thing. You could practice just a little bit every day, right? Would that be right?
Yeah, but think about it. The training part, teaching them the technique, that only takes a week. But the practice, it's either going to take you, a month. It could take years.
Right.
That just makes your dog better. But they already know the technique. In other words, I could teach a dog the down in a day or two. They know the down. Now we just repeat it over and over. That's not training. That's conditioning.
Right. Well, it's a great book. And I thank you so much for being here, Brandon. Thank you so much. And I thank all our listeners. You should certainly log onto the website and learn more and tune into the show because it's fantastic and read the book. Thank you, everybody. This has been My Dog Digs Dirt.
Let's Talk Pets every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.